For my term project, I had the mathematician Blaise Pascal. Pascal was born on June 19th, 1623, in Clermont-Ferrand, Auvergne, France. He lived to the age of 39 and died on August 19th, 1662, in Paris, France. His cause of death was stomach cancer that had spread to his brain. His parents were Etienne and Antoinette Pascal. Pascal's father was a lawyer who was also a member of the aristocratic and professional class. His mother, Antoinette, was the daughter of a merchant. Pascal was the third child and only son of his family. Overall, he and his family enjoyed a comfortable lifestyle in France. A fun fact about Pascal's name is that he is named after his uncle and also Saint Blaise, who is the patron saint of throat illness, which is a fun fact because Pascal was always sick. He was often sick, and his neighbors actually believed that his sicknesses were an effect of witchcraft. So that tells you how often he was sick if his neighbors just can't think of any other reason for why he was sick so often. However, Pascal's illnesses may have actually given rise to his intellectual advances rather than slowed them down, and they could have been a motivational push for him to try harder and work through his illnesses. After his mother's death in 1631, the Pascal family moved to Paris, France. Etienne then began to homeschool the children and set up a special program just for Blaise to be supervised. This was made to control him and keep him in line with other studies because his father believed that once he was taught math that he would ignore all other studies. However, when Pascal was at meetings with his father, he would see mathematicians just going away at math, and he was interested by what they were doing. And so eventually his father's plan backfired when Pascal was 12 years old and began to teach himself geometry, which he started out by teaching himself that the angles of a triangle equal 2 right angles. And math was also very interesting to Pascal since it was seen as a forbidden topic, and by not being allowed to learn it, he wanted it even more. Also, Pascal was never married, and he didn't have any children later in life. A historical event that might have influenced Pascal is the 30 Years' War. This war started in 1618 and lasted for 30 years until 1648. This war was a predominant German war, but it affected all of Europe. So even though most of the war was fought on German territory, all of Europe was involved in some shape or form. The main cause or subject of this war was the Protestant Reformation, which was led by Martin Luther. France was only involved in the diplomatic and political measures like creating peace treaties in this war, but they were still involved, and Pascal lived in France, so he was affected, and the war started 5 years before his birth and ended 14 years before his death. One of Pascal's major accomplishments was when he was 18 years old, he invented and built the first digital calculator. The idea came to mind to help out his father, who at the time was appointed the job of tax collector. The calculator was called the Pascalin, and he continued to make improvements to it as he went along. And the calculator's functions included adding, subtracting, multiplying, and dividing. However, it was very hard to work, and it was made with gears that would rotate, and there was a wheel with 8 movable parts for dialing. So every single wheel on the top would represent a digit, and you would just move the wheel to whatever number you want, like 1 through 9, or 0 through 9 actually, and then it would calculate it for you. However, sometimes the wheels wouldn't move, and the gears would get stuck and it just wouldn't work. So that was a problem, but he kept trying to fix it, and it gave way for future advances in calculators. Another advancement in math that Pascal accomplished was the Pascal triangle. And originally, the triangle was in Persia and China. However, Pascal gets to put his name on it because he completed the trait du triangle arithmetic, and he also developed properties and applications for the triangle. So you could use the triangle to expand binomial equations, and also every number was the sum of the two numbers above it, and the sides of the triangle were equal to 1. How you would use the triangle to expand binomial would be like, for example, if you wanted to expand row 3, the numbers are 1, 3, 3, 1, and the binomial would be, in parentheses, x plus y, and then to the third power. But when it's expanded, it is 1x to the third plus 3x squared y plus 3xy squared plus 1y to the third power. So the nth row of Pascal's triangle gives the coefficients of x plus y to the nth power. Another achievement that Pascal had was the vacuum. And the vacuum experiment that Pascal had tried out was influenced and inspired by an Italian physicist by the name of Evangelista Torricelli, who had done testing on a hypothesis of Galileo. So his experiment involved a glass tube closed at one end, and it was filled with mercury. The tube would then be inverted with the open end down, and the mercury would slowly drip out. At the top tube, there was a blank or vacant space, and that proved the existence of a vacuum. So Pascal had tested out other variations of this experiment and wrote down his findings in his account of the great experiment of the equilibrium of fluids. This document also contributes to the sciences of hydraulics and hydrostatics. Overall, Pascal contributed a lot to mathematics, especially in the field of geometry, but also he contributed ideas to probability and also sciences, including physics and hydraulics. His invention of the Pascaline was a major breakthrough for future inventions of the calculator, and he had also written a document on conic sections, which is related to geometry. Pascal also wrote on philosophy and theology, and actually when he was 18, when his father had died, he was sent to live and be taken care of by brothers, and after an accident on a bridge where he was left hanging, he had converted to Christianity, and he had writings on theology that promoted his religion. So, thanks, Pascal. You're awesome.